All right, 1999. Let's do this. 1999 was definitely a weird year for professional wrestling. It wasn't horrible, but it definitely had some moments. That's particularly what I could say about WWF. WCW was on the way out, so it gave WWF a lack of trying. They had creative differences in a lot of the stories. There was like a lot of great ideas being thrown together, but then at the end, the payoffs weren't there. Example: this was the year we got the higher power revealed to be Vince McMahon's infamous "It's me, Austin," which unfortunately led to nothing. And this was a true showcase of it because it just felt like they just had to throw in a bunch of stuff just to make the show make somewhat sense. The big thing that people were talking about that I remember hearing is that Stone Cold Steve Austin was supposed to fight China, where China would win the WWF Championship. Now, China winning the WWF Championship was not a bad idea. Her beating Stone Cold was a bad idea. And unfortunately, China doesn't really do anything on this show or appears at all. She does eventually win the IC title later on in the year, but in the process, this show they just kind of threw in whatever made sense. And for the most part, I didn't hate the show, but you can tell that if this wasn't the Attitude Era, people would have probably vomit all over this. If you don't have the stars that they had right here, then yeah, you were so screwed. D'Lo Brown fights Jeff Jarrett for the IC and European championships. D'Lo Brown was a dual champion. He was a good European champion, probably the best European champion there is. But IC champion, yeah, let's give it back to Jeff Jarrett. And around this time, Jeff Jarrett was a great heel. They're definitely putting in a lot of effort after the loss of his buddy Owen. Owen passed away earlier in the year, so they kind of wanted to slowly push Jeff Jarrett to a single star. And his run with Deborah was actually a really good one. Definitely some of his best work. A lot of people love Jeff Jarrett more as a country guy. Jeff Jarrett, you have some mixed feelings on the guy. I mean, he's the reason why Kurt Angle got divorced. I mean, can you really like? It's really hard to like the guy, but he does have some good ideas in pro wrestling. So, I mean, he created TNA for God's sakes. But anyways, Jeff Jarrett gets his moment. It was a decent little match, so I didn't really hate it. The Acolytes win a tag team turmoil match to determine the WWF number one contenders, WWF tag team champions to be exact. This was whatever. I really wasn't paying attention to it because it was just team after team after team, and then at the end the Acolytes win, which kind of threw me off given that the tag champions following this was Undertaker and Big Show. More on that later, but this was one of those like whatever. Like they couldn't have given it to the Hardys, the Brood. There was other tag teams, the Acolytes. I don't know. I like them more as APA, if I'm being honest. Before we get to the next match, Road Dogg comes out talking about how he deserves to be hardcore champion. He's gonna be on commentary. Chris Jericho appears briefly and talks smack about Road Dogg and stuff. But I really wish Chris Jericho had a match here. I truly believe that Chris Jericho was definitely ready for a match at SummerSlam. Imagine that being his first pay per view match at SummerSlam. That would be freaking awesome. Um, but anyways, what we got instead was Al Snow beating Big Bossman for the Hardcore Championship. Wasn't this guy dead supposedly after the Undertaker hung him at the cell? But I don't know. Like I said, they just threw in whatever. And have we learned nothing from the Kennel from Hell? Yeah, let's not do that again. Al Snow and Big Bossman, all you could think about is the Kennel from Hell. Even though this match was slightly better by a mile. But anyways, yeah, moving on. Ivory defeated Tori, not Tori Wilson, just Tori, the obsessed Sable fan. This went nowhere. Ivory was a good worker, but she wasn't really much of a character until she joins the Right to Censor the year later. Tori was just eye candy, if I'm being honest. If anything, she was not that attractive, if I'm being honest. But that's just my taste. But anyways, this was just a terrible match. You knew what you were getting into. We get Ken Shamrock and Steve Blackman in a Lions Den weapons match, similar to what we got last year with the Lions Den match, but this time with weapons surrounding the ring. That was actually pretty cool. Similar to what the Asylum match was, where you could just climb up and grab weapons. This was pretty good. Not as good as the Ken and Owen one from the previous year, but this one was also pretty entertaining. Steve Blackman, what are they? What did they not see in this guy? This guy was a star in the making. Same with Ken Shamrock. Both of these guys should have been world champions around this point. But unfortunately, that's just how life goes. They never put these guys as world champions, or at least get title shots for those belts. Like these guys look like stars, and they sold themselves as stars in this match. This was a great match, one of my favorites, but not my favorite match of the night. That would go to Test and Shane McMahon in a street fight, and the story was pretty decent. It was just Stephanie McMahon wanting the blessing of Shane for dating Test. Shane finally gives in after losing this match, but they go all out. They fought like there was a belt on the line, if there was some bigger thing going on. But this was actually the only match with somewhat of a solid story, and that's probably why it was the best match of the night. Really good, entertaining. Very unfortunate with that Test also was a guy that they kept trying to push, but they never gave him the world title. But Shane McMahon was definitely a great worker, definitely the best McMahon in the ring as far as that goes. But yeah, I was really entertained by this match. I really enjoyed myself, and yeah, this eventually led to Triple H invading Stephanie McMahon's wedding and showing a video of them getting married. It was a whole shenanigans going on around here. But anyways, this was yeah another really good match. The Unholy Alliance defeated X Pac and Kane, and I'm gonna be honest, if these four names were not there, I would care less because this match was alright. It was just two big men throwing X Pac around, Kane kind of defending. Kane and X Pac had very good chemistry as a tag team. One of my favorite tag teams for Kane. Like honestly, something about Kane and comedy tag teams always seem to work. X Pac, Hurricane, Danny O'Brien. I don't know, something about Kane and a smaller funny guy. It always works, and I was really having fun with this. So yeah, I was very entertained by this. So but anyways, the Unholy Alliance win. It's kind of unfortunate because Undertaker was the world champion prior to this, and then they just bunked him down. He had some god awful promos with Big Show. This was a really weird time to be a Taker fan, but he does get injured, and then the following year he comes back as the American Badass. So yeah, this was definitely a weird time to love the Undertaker. The Rock fought Billy Gunn. This should have been The Rock and Chris Jericho. Even if Chris Jericho lost, he could at least say he fought The Rock in his first match. But Billy Gunn, they were pushing him to the moon. He had one King of the Ring, I believe, and then The Rock buried him at Sunday Night Heat with that "Hi, my name is Billy." That promo definitely murdered any chance of Billy Gunn getting pushed to the top, and the match itself was alright. It had a silly moment where this big lady has her ass out, and Rock uses her ass to shove on Billy's face, and then The Rock wins. This was a kiss my ass match. We didn't have to see The Rock take his pants off, even though I know the ladies would have loved that. But the main event, a very controversial main event, might I add, a triple threat match for the WWF Championship with special guest referee Jesse Ventura. And I think around this time, Jesse Ventura was governor. I don't know what the whole story was, but obviously they brought in Jesse Ventura to sell this pay-per-view after the death of Owen. They needed a big comeback, and they thought this would be the right call. The match itself was good, but the rumor was that it was supposed to be just Steve Austin and Triple H one-on-one. But then Jesse Ventura wasn't going to hold the hand up for Triple H, given that he's a good guy. Stone Cold Steve Austin wasn't going to let that happen, allegedly. And then naturally, they just threw in Mankind just to have somebody raise their hand up for Jesse Ventura. So, well, at least Mankind got his main event moment winning the WWF Championship. Up to this point, he has been a 3-time WWF champion. Good job, Mankind. Good job, Mick. Good job for Mrs. Foley's baby boy. Um, Overall, this show was very entertaining. There's a lot of stuff that wouldn't have worked had it not been for the wrestlers themselves. That's the thing that I'm like seeing, that you really need to build stars in order to give you a show like this, even though it wasn't that great. I'll give it a B minus. It was entertaining, but I do see a better card for SummerSlam, especially around this time. It's 1999. You had The Rock, Mankind, Steve Austin, Triple H, Undertaker, Big Show, Kane, X Pac. I mean, there's billions of stars. Chris Jericho had just signed. Ken Shamrock, Blackman. There's just so many top tier stars, and they could have done much better things with all of these guys. Uh, but you get what you get, and it was a fine show. But yeah, we're done with the 90s, on to the 2000s. So we're gonna kick it off with SummerSlam 2000 whenever I get that video up.